Hello, my name is Kent Field, and thank you for tuning into this YouTube channel, The Bible versus Opinions. God bless you in your search for the truth. While all people have opinions on many subjects, including the Bible and religion, not all opinions carry the same weight or value. For example, would you go to a plumber for his advice on brain surgery? Would you go to a mechanic for his advice on heart surgery? The point is, not all opinions carry the same weight or value on a particular subject. That's why I'm not offering you my mere opinion, but Bible answers alone. So here's the challenge. Are you open to learning beyond your current understanding and knowledge of the Bible? If so, then this channel is for you. If these studies have helped you to grow in your understanding of the Bible, or even life itself, please like and subscribe and share this channel with others so that they too may be challenged and grow in their understanding of the Scriptures.
We are beginning 1 Corinthians chapter 7 because there's a couple of things to discuss here and nail down that some people, I believe, misinterpret. There's a few things they misinterpret here, but anyway. So I'm going to be reading from the New American Standard, but I will be going back and forth with my KJV, which I have a lot of notes in when Abe Lincoln was one of my teachers. I like what he taught us many, many years ago. 1 Corinthians chapter 7, we'll begin with verse 1 and reading through this. And he'll say, now concerning the things about which you wrote. So they asked him a question. They wrote back to him. Remember, he said he wrote to them before, and now he's writing again. They must have responded, and they wrote to him, not just with, they brought up, obviously, Chloe's people brought back a letter to him. And they had some questions. So he's going to start addressing those questions. Notice they weren't asking about whether it's okay to sue one another.
No, they were not.
They weren't asking about whether it's right to start thinking you're better because you were taught or baptized by somebody else rather than this other person. They focused more on who was doing the baptizing and not why they were being baptized and the result of that baptism and their salvation, right? So now it's concerning the things about which you wrote. In light of the present distress, he's writing all of this. Verse 26 of the chapter. So I'm jumping to verse 26. He says, I think that this is good in view of what? The present distress. It's good for a man to remain as he is. So the church was going through some persecution, wasn't it? And it was historically, and he's referring to it there. And there's a distress going on, and there was a famine in Israel, and there was people taking up special contributions, which we'll see in chapter 16, right? So he says it's good for a man not to touch a woman. Now, he's not saying in marriage it's also good for a man not to touch a woman. And we're going to see that. That's in contrast to an unmarried person or a married person. In other words, it's good for an unmarried person not to be touching women.
It's good advice.
Good advice. You're going to get in trouble. But because of fornication, and again, that's the Greek word porneia, a plural form of it, all kinds of immoralities, let each man have his own woman, literally, and let each woman have her own man. Now, because it's their own, the translators translated man, aner, as husband. But there is no Greek word for husband there. And if you want to read it, it should be a form of the word aner, if you looked it up in an interlinear. The same thing is true for the woman, gune, for a woman. Let each female have her own male. Let each male have her own female, have his own female. Let the husband fulfill his conjugal duty. His duty. King James will say, render unto her due benevolence. So we have to have a benevolence room in the church. Talk about the benevolence room in the church, where they store what they say supplies for benevolence. So benevolence supplies, they mean canned goods. King James was talking about sex here. So I always get a kick about that when they talk about the benevolence committee. Well, what are they talking about? Well, here at benevolence is talking about sexual things. And it's not talking about in general. It's that the husband or the man shall fulfill his duty to his woman. And likewise also the wife to her husband. But this is not talking about procreation here. And we'll see that as it goes on. Let each man have his own woman, each woman have her own man. The wife does not have authority over her own body. Have you heard the opposite of that in recent years? Have you never heard a woman say, I have a right to my own body, over my own body? And what is that generally with reference to? What are they saying that about?
Killing a baby.
Killing a baby, abortion, removing a human life from her womb. Now, she says, I have a right to my own body, but how about the baby's body? What this says, the wife does not have authority over her own body. Well, who does? But the man does. The husband does. Now, you notice I keep translating that man as I'm reading, because that's what it is in Greek. In the original language, the Holy Spirit was speaking these words. Is it talking about the husband? Yes. Because it's possessive, right? His and hers. The husband does. And likewise, also, though, the husband does not have authority over his own body. I can't say to my wife, I'm sorry, dear, I have a headache tonight. But his wife does. So what is he saying? Verse 5. What is he talking about? I think it's pretty clear in verse 5. Stop depriving one another. What are they depriving one another of? He said in verse 4.
He said in verse 3.
And verse 3, but he's her own body. You can't deprive your husband of your body because it's his. And the husband can't deprive his wife of his body. It's hers. Isn't that what it says?
Yeah.
Stop depriving one another, except by agreement for a time, for a span of time. It's temporary. Well, why would you do that? Well, so that you may devote yourselves to prayer and come together again, lest Satan tempt you because of your lack of self-control. What's he talking about here?
Adultery, potentially.
Yes, but also what? He's talking about sexual appetite, sexual drive.
Well, that's what I meant. But by depriving your partner, they get tempted to commit adultery.
Or do other things, some kind of pornonia, immorality. It might be, well, I don't think they had Playboy magazines back then or videos on YouTube and the internet, but whatever it was, it doesn't have to just be the act of fornication, does it? Or pornonia. We get our word pornography from.
Hey, Dad, quick question.
Yeah.
Does this authority that they have over each other's body apply to more than just sex stuff? And if so,
Well, we'll see, but that's the principle here. The principle is applied to sex.
right, I get that. I'm just saying, outside of that, is there anything else that would apply to where a woman has authority over her man's body, let's say?
In this context, I don't see anything else discussed. That doesn't mean I would limit it necessarily, but to what extent would you apply it is my
Right.
question.
Yeah,
Here
right.
it's applied specific.
Yeah, okay.
So that's all I can say. Yeah.
Maybe a woman doesn't want her husband to go somewhere. I don't know. Maybe you could fill in the blanks. And she says, really, I don't want you going there.
Because
Someplace,
it's dangerous or something like that. But then, you know,
or it's
Or I'm taking a job out of town
maybe they did
because of immorality and a lack of self-control. Don't be a part. God, what is God acknowledging about us too? What is he acknowledging?
our susceptibility to temptation.
Through what?
Well, in this context, sex.
Sexual drive. He's acknowledging that he made us with this, right? He made us with this drive that this desire, this physical desire that is such that if you don't do it, you're being deprived by your mate. I'm watching Shark Week, really a shark month on TV right now in the summertime. And I'm seeing all these great whites and mako sharks, and they're going through their mating habits and how during certain seasons, the males fight and compete. Even in these are fish. And they have their strong drive to mate with a big female that's usually about twice their size. All through this, I want you to remember something because it's going to come up. In chapter 14 of 1 Corinthians and chapter 14, verse 37, Paul will say, in that context, but he's going to say in other places as well, if anyone thinks he is a prophet or is spiritual, you know, I'm so spiritual. You're so spiritual. Let him recognize that the things which I write to you are what?
The Lord's commandment.
What'd you say?
The Lord's commandment.
The Lord's commandment. And Pat, you can speak up. You don't have to raise your hand. You just interrupt me because it's easier that way.
all right.
Now, also in 1 Corinthians chapter 2, he said in verse 13, chapter 12 says, now we have received not the spirit of the world, but the Spirit who is from God, that we might know the things freely given to us by God, which things we also speak, not in words taught by human wisdom, but by those taught by the Spirit, combining spiritual thoughts with spiritual words. So he's claiming that he's writing on behalf of the Spirit, and he's writing from God. He's speaking from God. That's important to remember in the context of what we're about to read. Because some people misunderstand what he's saying here. And I think I have a much better answer than what they say.
And he says it in this chapter too a couple times. So not I, but the Lord.
Yeah, but but that's part of where they go awry. And we're going to see that very soon. But this I say by way of concession, not of command. So somebody's saying, well, Paul's making a concession there. But it's not a commandment from God. But he's going to say later on, the things I'm writing to you are the Lord's command. And the things that I speak are spiritual thoughts, with comparing spiritual thoughts with spiritual words, and the words coming out of my mouth are from the Spirit.
I think when he's saying that, I say this by way of concession, not of command, is like verse 7. I wish that all men were even as I am. He was single. I think it applies to that and not what is before.
Right. Well, what he's saying, very simple, is God understands you have weaknesses. And he understands that what might be the best course might not always be the easiest course or the best for you individually. And because of temptations and because of fornication, then because not everybody, he's going to say in the next verse, not everybody has the same gift, then it's better to marry than to burn. We're making a concession here, but it's really best if you just remained as I am. And he's going to say that again in verse 26 and 27 of this chapter. So right off the bat, this is not Paul making a Pauline concession or a Pauline exception to the rule that says basically the rule is that you shouldn't touch a woman. But because you have weaknesses, God understands that. And by way of concession, let each man have his own woman and each woman have her own man. And you don't have the rights over your own body, but your mate does. And so don't separate except by stop depriving one another. That's a command, by the way. So the overall thing of not touching a woman is the thing that he's saying. I'm saying this by way of concession, but not a command. I'm not commanding you to remain unmarried or celibate.
No, it's also the whole thing is in response to what they wrote to him.
Right.
So he's giving his informed opinion as someone who also has the Spirit of God.
Yeah, he's giving God's opinion, though, is what I'm saying. He's giving God's opinion directly.
Well, in the context of what they were asking, I would say, because God says it's not good for man to be alone. And he says
that's another place. That's another place. But that's why he's saying, but right now, under this present distress, and he's saying this all in light of this. He said, yet I wish that all men were even as I myself am. I wish everybody could be like me and you didn't have this what? What's he talking about here? Say it again. I said it before. Sexual drive, sexual need for sexual contact. And he's going to say it's a gift. Even as I myself am. However, each man has his own gift from God, one in this manner and another of that. What did he just call that lack of drive with a need to touch a woman?
A gift.
It's a gift not to have that need and that distraction. I wish everybody could be like me. But I say to the unmarried and to widows that it is good for them to remain even as I am, that is, unmarried. So if you're unmarried or a widow, don't even seek to be married. And he's going to say that again later on. But if they don't have what? Verse 9. If they don't have what? What's the answer to a lack of self-control here? Pray.
To get married.
Sit there and punish yourself. But the answer to this is not cut it off. But to those who don't have self-control, let them what?
Marry.
Marry for what? It's better to marry than to what? Burn. That's burn with what? Burn in hell? Well, you ultimately would. But it's burn with what?
Passion.
There you go. It starts with the word P, the letter P. It's passion. Sexual drive. And then the final thing is, but some have made themselves eunuchs for the kingdom of heaven. Now, the word eunuch can be referring to an emasculated man or to an unmarried person. And only the context will tell you what it's talking about. Heaven. And he was talking about that in the context of divorce and remarriage. And his disciples said to him, if this is the case, that you're going to be committing adultery if you're divorced and get remarried, it's better not to marry. And he says, yeah, some remain unmarried for the kingdom of heaven's sake. And that's what he was referring to. Was that Matthew 19?
Yeah, 19, like 10 through 12.
Yeah, Matthew 19, early verses. But to the married, I give instructions. To the married, I give instructions, not I, but the Lord. But to the married, I give instructions, not I, but the Lord, that the wife should not leave her husband. Now, what's he saying when he says that? The Lord addressed this. Matthew 19, for example. The Lord taught on this. And all you have to do is read that. I'm giving instructions, not I. So to the married, I am giving instructions, but it's not me, it's the Lord that said this, that's saying this, right? Now, they had questions about this. Remember, they wrote and asked questions about all this. What should they do? He said the Lord addressed this already. That a wife should not leave her husband. She should not chorizo, separate herself from her husband. But if she does, remember, now somebody says, oh, what is he doing here now? In 1 John chapter 2, he says, little children, I'm writing these things to you so that you don't sin. Okay? That's the rule. I don't want you to sin. But when you do, we have an advocate before the throne of the Father. Isn't that what he says in chapter 2, verses 1 and 2? Something to that effect. So he's saying, look, a wife shouldn't do this, but if she does, because people do what they're going to do sometimes, right? God acknowledges that, just like he said, look, it's good for a man not to touch a woman. But because of immoralities, there's a concession made, right? And even when you say, okay, I'm not going to deprive one another, if you do, it's only for a period of time. So don't deprive, but when you do, make sure it's only temporary, that Satan doesn't tempt you. What that tells me throughout this is that God understands the weakness of us and our need for forgiveness and our need for instructions in how to handle the next step when we've made a mistake or when we've gone in the wrong direction or when we're tempted or we have drive that we feel guilty about and we don't know how to handle it. Isn't he giving us instruction? He's giving us, he understands us. He made us. I tell this to people all the time. You're made up of what? Chemicals, right? There's all kinds of chemicals and hormones running around inside your body, right? Constantly. Can the amount of sugar affect how you think?
Sure.
Can an imbalance in serotonin or what's the other one with the melatonin and other hormones that are in your body and in your brain affect the way you think, affect your attitude, affect your aggression, how much testosterone you have or you don't, or estrogen, or you don't. We're chemical beings. And do we have at times problems with maybe a hormone imbalance? Or do we have not enough sugar or not enough or too much sugar? I'm just using that as an example. But it could be other chemicals that we ingest. Not enough magnesium. And you can get all kinds of cramps and pain. And then the pain gives you an attitude. And if you're living in pain, it can really hurt your attitude. God understands all of this and says, listen, I'm giving you a way. It's like an owner's manual. Treat the car this way. But when this happens, or if you overdid it here, then here's how you deal with it next. And then here's what you do in that situation. And here's what you do to fix this. And here's what you do to deal with that. I wish everybody could just be like me and you didn't have to even think about this stuff. But everybody's got their own gift. And God understands this. This is so important if you think about it. Just that part of it alone. And what we're reading. He says, I'm giving instructions, not me, but the Lord, that the wife should not leave her husband, or chorizo, separate from the husband. But when she does, let her remain what? Unmarried, or else be reconciled to her man. Because she got separated didn't mean she don't have a man to be reconciled to. Right? Let her be reconciled to her man. And that the husband should not send his wife away. That's what he spoke about in Matthew 19. Verse 4. And he answered and said, have you not read that he who made them from the beginning made them male and female? And said, for this cause a man shall leave his father and mother and shall cleave to his woman or wife, and they two shall become, not they 9, not they 12, they two shall become one flesh. Consequently, they are no more two, but 19 in the case of Mormons, right? A man can have 18 wives. But one flesh. What therefore God has joined together, let no man separate. They said to him, why did Moses command to give her a certificate of divorce? And he said, because of the hardness of your heart. Moses permitted you this, to divorce your wives or separate from them. But from the beginning, this is not the way. I say to you, whoever divorces his wife, except for fornication or immorality, and he marries another, commits adultery. The disciples said to him, if the relationship of a man with his wife is like this, it's better not to marry. Oh, you got it. Now, they could be saying it's better not to get married in the first place, or if you divorce her, it's better not to marry. Either way, meaning remain unmarried or else be reconciled. Because this is the Lord talking about it. But he said to them, not all men can accept this statement, but only those to whom it's been given. So that means you don't have to accept it if it hasn't been given to you to accept. That's not what he's saying. Is that this is tough to swallow. For why? Because there are eunuchs who were born that way from their mother's womb, and there are eunuchs who are made eunuchs by men, and there are also eunuchs who made themselves eunuchs for the sake of the kingdom of heaven. He was able to accept this, let him accept it. So he's addressing that last eunuch. If this is the case between a man and his woman, it's better not to marry. Now, whether it's being remarried, not to marry, fine. Or not to even get married in the first place, fine. Not everybody can accept this. But if you have a problem, either remain unmarried or else get reconciled, is what he said, the Lord said in verse 11. But to the rest, I'm telling you, not the Lord, So now he's saying, I'm going past what the Lord's going to tell you. No, he's not saying that. He's saying the Lord didn't address this part. He didn't address the believer versus unbeliever issues. Just the general question. So some people think, well, what about the believers and unbelievers? You've got all kinds of people being baptized into Christ now, and their mates are still heathens, right? Or still Jews, but not Christians yet. He says, but to the rest, I say, not the Lord, if any brother has a wife. So any brother now, he's not just talking about any man. You see where the Lord didn't address this part of it. He just talked about from the beginning. He made male and female, right? That's what the Lord addressed in Matthew 19. But here he's saying, now I'm addressing something in addition to what God, the Lord had addressed in Matthew 19 and other places in his teaching. If a brother has a wife who is an unbeliever and she consents to live with him, let him not send her away. That was a question. Can I get rid of this unbeliever? She doesn't believe in you. She's not a Christian. What should I do? That's why they're asking him, remember? Now you wrote this. You had questions. Certainly this is one of their questions. And he starts out by saying, look, you should marry. You're better to marry than to burn. However, because of immoralities and lack of self-control. But if you do get married, now what if you do, and you've got an unbeliever wife or husband, don't send her away. If she's consenting to live with you, if she consents to live with him, let him not send her away. See, Jesus didn't address any of that question in his public ministry. And the woman who has an unbelieving man and he consents to live with her, let her not send her husband away. Literally, it's a Greek word, phiame, to send away, to divorce, or to put away one's mate. So don't divorce them. Okay? Don't do it. Don't send them away. For the unbelieving husband is sanctified through the wife. Oh, then they're saved automatically, dipso facto, because of their believing mate. Some have said that's what it means. Sanctified means made holy. And it is the word here, holy, hagios. So what is he saying? Where is that Peter said they'll be saved without a word?
First Peter 3:1.
That's what I thought it was. I was there.
Just so happens that Sal has that on the
Tip of his tongue.
tip of
Sal
his.
has cross references in Bible Gateway. That's what Sal has.
There you go.
Okay, well,
1 Peter
Don't-
3:1. In
Chris,
1 Peter 3:1, it says, in the same way, you wives, be submissive to your own husbands, so that if any of them are disobedient to the word, they're not Christians, they're not faithful. They may be won without a word. One meaning W-O-N, like not one O-N-E, but one, like you win them. They may be won without a word by the behavior of their wives, as they observe your chaste and respectful behavior. So they're exposed to this Christian woman. And he's saying that these wives, in the same way, can win their husbands by being good Christian women. That's what he's saying here in 1 Corinthians. It's not any different, really. They're set apart. They're different from anybody else in the world because they're married to a Christian. That's what he's saying. Sanctified, verse 14 of chapter 7 of 1 Corinthians. For the unbelieving husband is sanctified through his wife, and the unbelieving wife is sanctified or made different or set apart. That's the definition of the word hagios. Only the context will determine how you translate that. Okay, you can set something apart for this reason or that reason. You can make it holy unto the Lord. You can make it sanctified, meaning made special. They're being made special. For otherwise your children were unclean, but now they are holy or set apart. They're different. Why? Because they're exposed to you. That's why you're not supposed to send them away. One of the reasons. The other reason is the fact that you are married. But if you had this question about if you have an unbeliever as a mate, whether your wife or your husband, you don't have to send them away. You should keep them. Why? If they're pleased to dwell with you, let them stay. Don't send them away. Don't divorce.
Thanks for being a part of that study segment. I promise you that, Lord willing, there's more to come. With the understanding that the mind can only absorb what the seat can endure, many of these studies have been broken up into a series of bite-sized segments. So be sure to look for the next segment in each Bible study subject, so you won't miss out on any important information. Please like and subscribe if you feel that this lesson